So I've wanted to do this for a while, and now we are getting the chance to sit down one-on-one and talk to each other. I'm going to dig into that big old brain of his. So up close with me, Bernadette Lee, this morning, but it's not at all going to be about me. We are going to focus on Stafford Barnett. Now, Stafford Barnett is the latest addition to our Wingin' It Wednesday show that you hear Wednesday mornings between 7 and 8. We have had such a great opportunity to have Stafford with us because it brings a different perspective, a different opinion or opinions about different issues. And I really wanted the chance to be able to get to know you and really share you with everybody, Stafford. So thanks for joining us.
Thank you, and thanks for getting the construction crew here to open the door up so I'll be able to fit out of it when all of it's done.
I don't want to give you the big head disease.
Y'all are thinking about me, and that's number one. Thank you.
Stafford is number one. All right, so I really want to start off with things that I would ask a friend, a person I'm getting to know. Even though I do know you a little bit, I want to share it with everybody else. Where are you from? Where did you grow up? Tell us a little bit about that.
Born and raised in Lafayette. Grew up here my whole life. Moved away for a very short period for about a month and a half when I was 15. But I grew up going to Woodvale, Alamo, swimming at Reds, playing basketball. Went to high school in Sunset. Stayed here after high school. Went to one semester of UL and thought it wasn't for me. And I went and worked offshore for a little while, and I met my wife and realized that I needed to get an education. So I spent 9 years getting a 2-year degree at night, and my wife and I got married, had kids, and my roots are here.
Wow. What you said, okay, go to the Woodvale, then LJ Alamo, spending time at Reds. What were your jobs like as a young person?
Oh, wow.
And then kind of into your early teens, and I heard you were a bouncer at one point.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
so tell us more about all of that. Like when you were younger, like in your teens, did you have that like, ooh, I have a job and it's like 5 hours a week, Stafford?
So my first job was I was I think 15, and I had a buddy who was washing dishes at Emanelli's, and he was like, "Hey, we need somebody," and I was like, sold in. I could get there on my bike. I'd work late hours. I'd make a little bit of money and go down the road, and so I washed dishes there for a while, and then my mom said, "Hey, we're moving to the north side of Lafayette. You got to quit," and I went, well, I don't want to quit. So she had to go quit for me.
Wow,
right?
No kidding.
Yeah, so
it was a heartbreaker for you, huh?
Oh, it was like, I'm actually putting cash in my pocket,
Oh,
and look,
man.
I had nothing to spend it on.
Right.
But it was mine, and I was doing something, and so get through high school, and I graduate, and I got to do something.
Yeah.
And so I start at a little lawnmower shop working on lawnmowers, and then I ended up delivering pizzas for BJ's.
Wow.
And then I had a couple of different odd jobs. Got a job working offshore doing communications. And
okay.
And so that was my first experience learning electrical. Did some work, thought I knew what I was doing, but the reality was I was an 18-year-old kid.
Wow. Okay.
And so about a year into it, I went, man, all my buddies are partying. I'm making great money.
Yeah.
But I could go out and have a beer and then get a call and have to leave.
And you have to go straight to work.
Right. And so I said, I could do something else. And so I did. And from there, it was a series of, either bartending or bouncing. I've bounced at probably 10 different places all over town. I'm a big guy.
Okay, yeah, you are. Let's tell everybody. How tall are you, Stafford?
I'm 6'4".
Okay, 6'4". You're an impending or an imposing figure when
I
people
am.
meat you.
I am. And it's something that I have to be conscious of in the industry that I'm in, because I've had people tell me that if I raise my voice during a meeting, that it's a little slightly more threatening than somebody else.
Gee, they think you might be a little intimidating.
So, I did that. And
do you ever throw anybody like out on the street anywhere?
Oh, of course.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, a lot.
Did you protect the women and make sure that no one did anything bad?
Yeah, I bounced at Screaming Coyote, which was at one point, which was the girls would dance on the bar, like line dance on the bar.
Right.
And And we'd get 2,000 people through the door on a Friday night, and there was me and 4 other guys
managing a huge crowd like that.
Yeah, and the bad part, look, this will date me. Graham Central Station was on the other side of the parking lot.
Right.
They didn't have bouncers. They had cops.
Whoa.
So the cops would throw fighters out. They got in a fight. They were like, look, we're being paid off duty. We're not arresting these people.
Yeah.
They'd throw them out the door. Those guys would get in their car and drive around the parking lot and come into Screaming Coyote and then get in a fight again. Well, our cops were outside. Right. And it was the bouncer's job to get them out. And it was bad enough that the DJ area was raised. We gave him a Q-beam spotlight.
No kidding.
And his job was, if he saw one before us, was to spotlight it so that we could see this like beam of light coming through the smoke.
Yes.
And run in and grab. And look, it was not always grabbing guys. Sometimes it was girls fighting.
Oh boy!
It was
Stafford. It must have been wild.
Oh, it was the wild days.
So you had to really put your cape on a little bit during the wild days because you got to be Superman and get in there.
You got to remember they're drunk and you're not.
Right. That's true.
All you have to do is just not be drunk.
Have you ever been that guy that's been drunk at a bar and a bouncer had to ask you to leave or like?
I've been thrown out of a bar or two.
No, you have not.
But it's always been, hey, would you mind leaving?
And you're like,
and I just go, yeah, I'll go.
Okay, so that's the other thing I want people to know about you, Stafford. You're such an easygoing man. You're just easygoing. That's the easiest way I can describe it. Sure, you may be 6'4", and you may say something, and somebody else in the room may disagree with you, but I love how you have that back and forth with them, and you just talk. I mean, you're just you.
So I took a personality test years ago for a board position that I had on the 705, and the lady gets done and she goes, you might be the most competitive person in the room.
Whoa.
But you want everybody to like you. Mm-hmm. And she goes, so you're the type of person who wants to beat somebody, but have them like you while you're doing it.
Wow.
And I was like, that's pretty accurate.
Pretty accurate to how you feel about your personality.
Yeah.
Well, and you've worked your whole life, right? So you've had to do that.
Yeah, and look, what I've learned in everything is that making enemies has never done anybody any good.
Right.
And some people will say, yeah, but I really stuck it to that guy. Well, guess what? You might be working for that guy one day. Or you might be working with that guy, or he might be working for you. Or you might be trying to accomplish something together. And I can tell you, I've had guys who've worked for me in the past who now work for the competition, who I still remain very, very close friends with. Because it just doesn't do any good to be so sold on what you do professionally that you forget what's important. And I tell you, to me, what's important is relationships. Family first, friends second. And, I take care of my family, and that's all I care about every day. But my downtime I spend with my friends. Mm-hmm. The career and the radio and all these little other things I do that for personal fulfillment. But if at any point in time they conflicted with any of the relationships or any of the other stuff that I do or my family, I got no problem walking away.
Family first. Tell me about your family.
Yeah.
What makes your wife so great? Tell me about your kids.
So, my wife is a saint.
What is her name?
Her name's Trisha Barnett. I'm not going to throw too much out there because she warned me. But my wife had faith in me when I didn't have faith in myself. Mm-hmm. So when we met, I was working offshore. I had a very technical job. I loved what I was doing. But she goes, look, you can do this. Mm-hmm. You can do better than what you're doing now. And I remember coming home one day and going, babe, I got my first sales offer for an industrial fastener company. And she goes, and I said, I don't know. I've never done sales before. And she goes, Stafford, you'd be great. And I went, all right, well, let's just try it out. And sure enough, she was right. It was great. You
guys sound like the dynamic duo. I mean, it sounds like you guys support each other.
We do. And look, I'll tell you, I'm terrible with money and she's great with it. Like that. She's the reason that I'm not broke.
Like you didn't buy 2 ponies for your kids. Oh, buy yourself a Ferrari, those kind of things.
Yeah, the fact that there's $1 in my savings account is because she has, she's just better with it than I am. And that's the thing that people I don't think enough people appreciate about my wife is that she's so good with the details. Where I don't care about the details.
Really? Okay.
I care about getting everybody across the finish line. She cares about how we're going to get there.
Do you feel that way when it comes to doing things in your community? Is that similar?
I believe that getting things accomplished in the community is not as hard as people make it out to be. The problem I think that we have with getting things accomplished in the community is that the people who are attracted to service and to helping the community are not the type of people that are attracted to leadership.
Interesting.
I think, and I'm not saying that that's carte blanche. I'm saying that I've seen it happen a lot of times. I think the key to getting things accomplished in the community is going, hey, what do we want to be? What do we have to do to get there? And who's going to take over the task to get it done? And having somebody to facilitate that is how you get things done in the community. And a lot of people sit there and go, these things are tough, right? And it's what we have to talk about is when you look at major things that have been done anywhere, they were done by individuals. Every single person was involved that had something to do with that. And when I tell people, we want to try to get a group of people together to come help out. No, forget that. Let us organize that. You just show up and be willing to work. And you can get a lot of great things accomplished. And when we look at what's happening in Lafayette right now, when you look at the collective age of the school board and the collective age of city council, it's gotten a lot younger. I don't know if you've noticed that or not. We've got some young people on there.
And how old are you, Stafford?
I'm 36.
Okay.
But we've got some young people on there, and that to me is refreshing because the reality is that the decisions made by the people on these boards are going to affect their kids.
That's right.
Their kids. And they're the ones that have to live with the consequences. And I try to tell people, and I'm not trying to say that, old people on boards is bad or any of that kind of stuff, but what I am trying to say is I feel that they have more skin in the game. And yes, the older people with their grandkids will be affected. I get that. But when I call Liz Webb or Eric Konezek or Justin Santani, I say, hey, I got a problem with what you're doing. I go, this is how it affects me and my kids. And it brings something valuable to the conversation when I have that discussion.
All right, we are going to continue coming up more into Stafford Barnett. Who is he? What fuels him? What motivates him? Why he really thinks it's really important for each individual when they have a passion for their community to take part, to show up, to join. All of that and more about Stafford on the way. So each Wednesday morning, there are three people that sit in the room for Winging It Wednesday. They are Carol Ross, Warren Cottle, and a man named Stafford Barnett, who we are getting to know this morning. He's 36 years old. He's married. Trisha apparently is a saint. God bless you, Trisha. And I want to tell me about your babies.
Oh, man. So life changed for me when I had kids.
Tell me all about it. How old are they? How was it? How was your life before? How is it now?
I mean, my life was fun. And look, I was and I still am. I was able to do more, but very involved in the community. I am now just at a different capacity. Attending a lot of functions. I was on multiple nonprofit boards and in leading some things and putting events together and having a great time. And when we found out that we were pregnant, which was what we wanted, we were excited. And when I found out that my first one was going to be a girl, I was heartbroken, and I didn't talk for 2 days.
What are you talking about, Stafford?
I'm not joking.
Okay.
I wanted a boy so bad I couldn't see straight.
I love that you are. See, this is what I love about you, Stafford. When I ask you questions, this is why I wanted to talk with you one-on-one, because I love your honesty.
Yeah.
A man in America who says, man, I was really kind of bummed out for a couple days,
My wife had to ask me, she's like, are you okay? Do I need to call your friends to come talk? I'm not even, this can be verified.
I love your honesty.
And look, it didn't help. I ran my mouth. I said, my son is going to date all your daughters. I told every single one of my friends. I mean, often, right?
Yes.
And look, one of the things I'm known for is I harass my friends. If you're getting harassed by me, it's because I really love you. And all my friends who had kids, I harassed the hell out of them. But so we found we were having a girl, and so anyway, my daughter was born, and I couldn't have been more wrong. They love their dads.
Oh.
And then when we found out we were pregnant again, and we found out it was a boy, I said, man, I kind of hit the lottery, because I have friends who have 4 girls, right?
Right, sure.
Or waited. They had 3 girls, and they're like, we're not going to see what the 4th is, and it comes out, and the dad's like, looks like my dad had 4 girls.
That's right. That's right. I was the 4th one too. I know how those families. My sister hung up on my parents.
Well, and my son, it's so cool to be a dad to two kids, and I'll tell you, at times I worry that the other parents at daycare secretly hate my kids.
Oh my God, Stafford, you're hilarious. Why?
Because they have something that I can't teach. I coach my daughter's soccer team, and I've told my wife I can't teach aggression. I can teach how to control it because I went through it. I was an aggressive kid.
You were an aggressive kid.
I was a very aggressive. I'm still aggressive. And it's about learning to control your emotions and learning to control those thoughts that are going, whether they're positive or negative, and staying in the moment. And with my kids, they have a lot of love. And They have a lot of love at home, and they try to share it with everybody. They're hugging everybody at school. They're running around, and they care about each other, which is very important to me. But I love it. Coaching my daughter's soccer team has been absolutely phenomenal. I can't wait for my son to start.
Now, how old is your daughter?
My daughter's 4. She'll be 5 in July.
Awesome.
My son will be 3 in July. And
do they just all clump together at one end of the field?
Not my team.
Not your team. They're
Not
out
my
there.
team,
He's
no.
like, we're going to make this work.
No, and look, you can tell when my team's playing because, like, there's 4 fields, and you'll hear one coach just screaming, like, go get the ball, turn the ball, get in the goal, run. I mean, it's me yelling.
I knew you were a very passionate person.
Yeah.
Right? By the way that we all discuss things on Wednesdays.
Yeah.
But I never would have thought, but that's great that you're in it.
Oh, yeah.
And trying to teach them, let's get out there and do this.
Well, we teach them before every game, because it's an all-girls team. Before every game, they have to say 3 things, and they have to say it loud. I get them together, and I ask them, what happens when you fall down? And they have to scream, we get back up.
That's right, yeah.
What happens when somebody takes the ball? They have to scream, we take it back. And then I yell, are boys faster than girls? And they have to yell no. And it's important for me to teach these girls that there'll be times in their life where they'll be called bossy, they'll be called controlling, they'll take the leadership traits that we want in men, and when we look at it in a woman, we'll treat it as a negative.
Wow.
And that's not okay.
Stafford, you are blowing my mind. I mean, that honestly, it speaks straight to my heart. I love that.
Yeah.
I've been that woman.
Well, my daughter, that's going to be my daughter her whole life.
Where do you get that from? Do you get that from your wife, your mother, your experiences? What is it that I've got to impart this and make sure that this is part of my daughter's growth?
I honestly, I don't know. I don't know where it came from. I will tell you that my mom is one of the strongest women I've ever met in my life, who always wears her heart on her sleeve, is always kind to others, and was very, very pivotal in my life. But I think that I realized at times that I was probably one of the ones that called a girl bossy.
Yep.
Or all the other things.
All the other words.
Right.
With the other B words.
Right.
Or some others.
And then when you have a girl,
yeah,
and you sit back and you go, as a alpha, I've been assuming that every woman I've been in business with needed to take a back seat, whether I felt it or said it or not. Maybe they weren't as legitimately at the table as they should have been.
Yeah,
and maybe I treated them that way. And then
Stafford,
with your daughter,
you're so open to this whole conversation. This is great.
I mean,
I'm so glad that I'm getting to share who you really are with people, and thank you for sharing it with the people that are listening right now.
Well, I'm glad to be sharing. I think more people need to think about that.
Absolutely.
And when I had a daughter, I said she's my firstborn. She has a chance to be whatever she wants.
That's right.
And it's more important for me to facilitate that opportunity for her to be whatever she wants, and to give her those tools than it is for anything else. And it's the same thing for my son. My son's going to learn how that it's okay to be angry, that you have to control it,
right?
And you have to be kind to others, and you have to take responsibility for your actions. And my daughter's going to learn the same thing, but she's got to learn it, hopefully, in a different society than I was in at the ages that were pivotal for me. A society that's more open to women leading. And we're starting to see it now. We see more women in government. We've got 2 women on the council. We talked about the glass ceiling being broken with the women we got there. So
I was a female program director of a talk station, in the early 2000s. So yes, it's continuing, right? And we're really seeing it. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So if you are looking at what we are doing now in our community, okay, and relate that to how you feel about your daughter, will there be a place at the table? Are we learning these lessons? And if we're not, how can you help in this community, in your mind, to get us where we need to go in reference to that or other issues, Stafford?
So when you look at the things that we can put on paper that affect women negatively in society, that we can write down, right? Domestic abuse,
Yep.
teen pregnancy, not enough education, right? Those are things that we can affect. And I was reminded about this yesterday. That's something I used to preach that I had forgotten about. The health of a society has a direct correlation to the education level of the women in society.
Now, are you, by health, are you saying, are you using them together, the mental health, the physical health, all of it?
The crime rates, the physical health, the amount of children per household. That actually, the higher the education level with women in society, the lower children per household. And so when you look at these, arguably to some people, socialistic countries, Norway, Scandinavia, ultra high taxes, ultra high education levels, free college, right? They have children who are healthy. They're not obese. They live longer. They're more likely to get a college degree and take an active role in something, or just find a way to do what they love, right? That being said, it's really cold over there, so it's really hard to figure out what you love. It better be indoors. So, when I look at Lafayette and I try to figure out where we're going, I've always felt that Lafayette's the best city in Louisiana. But
It's the best, but you're very concerned. So what's wrong with us in your mind?
Well, I think that we've made some bad decisions here lately.
Like what?
I think voting down the school tax was one of the worst things that we could have told our kids. Not just done to them, but told them. When you look at Yugsville
but
and
it was
Broussard,
for buildings. So people, that was so at the forefront of that whole discussion.
Yeah, that's fine. It was still no to education. Whether it was buildings or textbooks, it was still no. When you look at how it was pitched, I disagree that it should not have been a sales tax. And that's part of the problem. We put it into a bucket where it's already really high. I can't tell you how many misinformed people I hear say, we have really high taxes. No, we don't. We have really high sales tax. We have very low property taxes. Okay.
But we also have a lot of poor people.
We do.
We need to factor that in too.
We do. We do. And we need to provide opportunity for them. When you look at Broussard and Youngsville, who arguably have some of the newer homes in town and have a nice, decent amount of property tax wealth, those guys said yes to a permanent 1-cent sales tax for a soccer field, for 2 sets of soccer fields. Then they get a brand new high school, they get a brand new charter school, and they get various other schools, right? And then they say no to a 1 cent, to a half a cent temporary sales tax, right? And so when you sit there and you go, what are our priorities as a community? And one of the pieces of advice I give to people on a regular basis is that when somebody shows you their true colors, believe them, right? Don't ever try to convince yourself that somebody's different than what you're noticing. What I think we have a chance to fix this, right? To fix our education system.
But how do you think we fix it in Lafayette? Give teachers a raise?
No.
Do we add more?
We need new facilities. Point blank.
Why do you think facilities correlates into better instruction, smarter children? What do you think it is about that?
I think that kids should want to go to school. I think they should be comfortable in their environment. And I think that when you walk through LJ Alamo or Woodvale, my daughter, we were looking at schools, and I walked through Woodvale, and nothing's changed. Nothing's changed. We just had a discussion yesterday about how, the infrastructure for Wi-Fi in our public schools, the cost of keeping HVAC running at Lafayette High. It's, to me, and here's the frustrating thing too. We sit back and we go, Katy, Texas. Katy, Texas has all the nicest facilities, blah, 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 blah. They're so great. I saw an anti-tax page run an ad about the fact that Katy was taxing its citizens to build another stadium. Their citizens say, we want education first. That's the reason that we're here. And they pay 3% in property taxes. That is a lot of money. 3% property taxes on a $180,000 home is $18,000.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Wait. That number is way wrong. I'm sorry. On a $100,000 home is $3,000. So every $100,000 is
sure.
$3,000. This is why we need more education, right?
Stafford.
So the reality is, and this is fact. The more community spends on education, the less they spend on jails, right? Mm-hmm. And what do we have in Louisiana that's unique to us besides our culture? Mm-hmm. We have the highest incarceration rate in the known universe. Mm-hmm. If I want to make Lafayette a better place for my daughter, I ain't gonna make it a better place for everybody.
All right, we will continue our conversation. Stafford Barnett is joining us. You know him from our Wednesday show, Winging It Wednesday. He's one of the 3 panelists, but we wanted to talk more about Stafford, who he is, what he thinks, what has shaped his life and his perspective. So we will continue our conversation on the way. We're talking with Stafford Barnett, and he is always joining us on Wednesday mornings. He's one of the panelists as part of Winging It Wednesday. We're having an ongoing discussion about what motivates him, why he thinks we should invest deeply in education in Lafayette, why we should change some things that he believes are fundamentally wrong. So I want to start out this portion of our conversation, Stafford, asking you, first off, when you got the call to suggest that maybe you should be a part of Winging It Wednesday, I want to know what you really thought and just give it to us. Because, obviously you're an honest guy. You say what you think.
Yeah.
Did you hate KPEL before? Did you listen to it before? What were your thoughts on that first phone call? Hey, Stafford, you want to come hang out on Wednesdays?
So I got a call from a couple of friends. And they said, hey, we recommended you to participate in Winging It Wednesday with Carol Ross and Warren Cottle. And I knew who Carol was because I worked on Liz Webb's campaign. And it was Liz, then Gerald, and Carol didn't make the runoff, right? Mm-hmm. And everybody felt that she was a shoo-in and that she's Lafayette royalty. She should have this. But everybody worked really hard on that campaign. And I said, before I say yes to this, does everybody know who I am? I need to make sure Carol knows. Yeah, don't worry about that. I said, all right. So I went and met with Rob, and at the time the discussion was about the Mouton statue and the statues in New Orleans and all this kind of stuff. And I told him my opinion on it. He goes, I think you'll be great. Mm-hmm. And I went, all right, let's do this, you know? And
all right, so you take this dive, you jump in with us on Wednesdays.
Yep.
Were you scared after the first couple of shows? What did you think? And
I was a little nervous at the first one. The second one, I got my sea legs under me, and from then on, I've just been comfortable.
Yeah.
And, my motivation to do it was that I personally felt that there was bad info, especially after the school board election, being put out into the community for 10 hours a week. And I said, who's going to put that in check? You can only check that so much on social media. A podcast isn't going to put it on check because the people listening to the radio aren't going to put it on, aren't going to turn on a podcast, right? So I said, if I can do this live, and the one thing I was warned about was, hey, Carol's very intelligent. She's very prepared. So is Warren. Mm-hmm. And I said, okay, I can do that too. And I'm a sucker for information. I spend too much time reading about everything, right? I mean that my wife gives me a hard time
Trisha
about it.
says, stop,
yeah,
pay attention to us. We're here.
And look, I say this, I say all this stuff about Carol, and the reality is I did want to be an opposite voice of hers, but I hope that she knows that when I talk about bossy and leadership and women, that I believe that she's an example for other women.
Yes. Yes.
And while
I bet she does understand that about you.
I don't agree with most of what she says, but I believe that she has paved the way for others to get up and say something. And so I have a lot of respect for her about that.
I can tell you, Stafford, she was always the person who was very supportive throughout the years to me, because I was in a job where there weren't a lot of ladies doing that necessarily. So I think for you saying that again, I think you showing your heart, how you really feel about things. I'm so glad people get this opportunity.
Yeah. I'll be honest with you, the radio's been an absolute blast because I get two different comments, right?
Right.
I get the callers who go, I hate Stafford, right? And which honestly,
and what are you registered as, by the way? Let's talk about that real quick.
So I just changed my registration. I was a registered independent.
You were a registered independent.
And now I'm a registered no party.
You're registered no party.
Yes.
Okay.
And I believe that others should do that as well.
And why do you believe that?
I believe that the Democrat Party and the Republican Party have allowed their extremists
to rule it all.
Dictate the conversation. We have the Tea Partiers who say no to everything. And then we have the people who are talking about 100 different genders on the Democrat side, right? And when you sit back and go, hey, guys, I believe that we should be fiscally responsible. I also believe that we should pay for things. I also believe that we should leave people in their bedrooms alone. And somebody goes, well, you're a libertarian. I don't think I'm a libertarian. I think libertarian also leans too far no for me on everything. I believe that the government provides a valuable role in regulation. That unchecked anything can lead to
serious situations via our conversation this entire week about Facebook. There are many who are saying we have to have restrictions now.
And you're right. And look, I'm on Facebook and I'm on there too much. And I would like to get off of it. And I've been thinking about it a lot here lately. And it's one of those things where if you surround yourself with people that think like you, it doesn't do you any good.
That's absolutely right.
And if you turn off the voices of people that oppose you in social media or you don't agree with, it's bad for you, right?
I love to read the opinions of people that I know maybe, and I'm not speaking for myself, but they may think, oh, this is what KPEL is,
right?
And I think totally differently. I have so many people on Facebook, and I love to read what their thoughts are,
right,
and their perspectives. I get that from you. I understand where you're coming from.
And I have a slightly nihilistic approach to politics, right? The data shows that people who are more compassionate are more likely to be liberal, and people who are more orderly are more likely to be Republican.
Right. Okay.
And when you realize that those two traits are generally determined by genetics and environment at an early age, then you realize that there's almost no ability to convert anybody. And when you take that step back, if you accept that as truth or partial truth,
then what do you get?
You realize that it's important that both sides work together to get stuff done. So you may not believe that, but you probably still believe it's important for both sides to work together. Because I believe part of that, it's really important for both sides to work together to get things done. And so that's what I think everybody should do. I think that that we can fix the things that we don't like about Lafayette and Louisiana. We don't have to give up on it. We don't have to move to Houston or Colorado or any other place who arguably has significantly higher taxes.
Right.
Right. But they go there because they want a better quality of life. And somehow we still have this group in Lafayette that equates quality of life with low taxes, and it's just not the way that it is.
But there are people who are diametrically opposed to what you think, right?
Yeah, 100%.
Right.
And I encourage.
So you are about, look, let's find some common ground.
100%. And when and the appeal to compassion hasn't worked many times. Right? We showed videos of kids walking through the rain, and we still had dark DC money being poured in here and local money, although the motivation was different for some of the locals to oppose the education vote in Lafayette. But it did work with flooding, right? We saw 2,000 families in Lafayette get affected, and I was one of them, negatively by what happened. And so people said, hey, this is something we need to do. So why do you think the two things happen? Because for me, and looking at the analysis of all of it,
Joel Robideau made a comment, I think, that resonated with a lot of people. And he said, as taxpayers, you told us, go back, look at your books, do some realigning, and we will vote for that versus adding the new tax for students. I think maybe the difference was that for some people, they are okay with it because it's already an existing tax. We already had enough going into that particular fund.
Yeah, so the school board did a bad job of telling the story, right? And the story is that up until 1982, we had, I want to say it was a 13 mil property
It
tax.
was, yeah, it was good.
Significant. That built 50 schools in 50 years. And the council let it roll, or the school board let it roll off because we were in a depression, and we didn't see a light at the end of the tunnel. We never brought it back, right? And so we stopped building schools when that tax went away, period, right? And the other tough part is that schools don't move, right? Once you build them in one place, but guess what? People do, right? So we have the Youngsville Broussard situation, right? And then what was in the news this week? The death of an athletic program. They're talking about sports dying at Como because of Southside High. So I think what happened with the school board is that they didn't do a good job of selling it to the people. And they also had a faction of people in Lafayette who were putting out bad information, who were being paid to put out bad information, and it was getting repeated a lot. And so me and a couple others were coming out and finding a way to counteract some of that and say, look, this is true. What they're saying is true, but it's out of context. Here's the context. Here's why it happens. And people can do pretty dangerous things with the truth, right? You can take a little bit of info and take it a long way. And that's why it's important to be involved civically, right? You see people get really angry about what's happening on occasion with the council or with the school board. But they're triggered by one thing.
Yeah, what's important to them.
They didn't listen to the whole story.
Right.
I can't tell you how many people I've heard get mad about what's happening in Baton Rouge that have never been to the Capitol,
Sure.
that have never called a rep, that have never said, hey, I'm your constituent. You need to talk to me.
Right.
And the problem that we have is that we treat these people like they're higher up in society. Because they ran for office and got elected, that they're not accessible. They are people. They are people just like me and you. I mean, and that's what got me involved in all of this. I'll be honest with you. Was I went to a 705 meeting, and I thought the 705 was the dumbest thing ever. Young professionals, who does that, right? And my wife said, I'm going to a meeting. Well, if you're going, I'm going, right? And we were talking about deconsolidation, and we had two former council members up there, one arguing for, one arguing against. And I got up and I said, okay, you guys want to ban to-go cups downtown, but you're letting 9 people vote on it, and only one of you represents the people there. And the guy who was against deconsolidation looks at me and goes, oh, so you're pro-litter. And and I sat down. And some other people stood up and commented and stood up for me and blah, blah, blah. But I walked out of that meeting and I went, I just got punked by a city councilman. Like, I didn't have the nerve to stand up and tell him he's wrong and defend my point of view.
Right.
I said, that's never going to happen ever again. And that's when I started getting involved. And that's when I started saying, hey, I can do something to help Lafayette. And look, part of that is working with the candidates. I think that are going to make Lafayette better. And people can call me, my brother calls me Castro. Like,
your brother calls you Castro.
My brother
You and your
calls me
brother
Castro.
are completely opposed politically in your views.
I think he thinks we're completely opposed.
All right. Okay.
I think I'm a little bit in the middle of the road. Right?
Okay.
But I know people that don't think that way. Every campaign I've worked on has been for a Republican. And it has, I say worked, every campaign I've volunteered for has been a Republican. And so I've supported Democrats in the past. I honestly, whether you have an R or a D next to your name, I don't care. But I care. I believe that politics are important at a local level. Those are the guys that change things. The guys in Baton Rouge, the guys in Lafayette, and the guys on the school board. Those are the people that are going to make a difference in your quality of life. Hammer them, hold them accountable, have some knowledge of what's going on, right? Don't let anything take you by surprise. I mean, that's I can't tell you, that's frustrating to me when I hear somebody flip out about something and I have to go, okay, you're angry about this. Take the emotion out of it and look at the series of events that got us to where we're at, right? I heard people go, I'm taxed enough already. I don't want to pay taxes for drainage. You're not taxed enough already. You say you have high taxes? Go look at the North Shore. Go look at Texas. Go look at any other place, right?
Right. But they will defend that in their way because of perhaps what they make, their salaries. Salaries are very different.
People on fixed income, yes,
Sure.
I understand. And
Well,
look,
even the median income, though, in Louisiana.
it's dropped $5,000 in the past 2 years in
It's
Lafayette.
painful.
It is
right?
painful. You're right. That
But you want to have the discussion about that, is what you're saying.
That's fine. There are communities who have figured out how to handle that.
How to do it. So
right?
bring people together.
Let's have a
them
discussion.
talk and keep talking.
Look, and people are going to hate this example.
Uh-oh.
But in California, once you buy a house, that a value that you bought it for is what you pay taxes on it. So, look, that house may be worth $30 million, but you paid $170,000 for it in the 70s, right? And it stays that tax rate. Taxes can go up, taxes go down, but it's still that value. Because we have a sliding value rate, that's what affects it. So maybe our answer is we value it at what it is now, right? Our home prices have dropped in town. Have you seen the assessors come by and dropped your home prices? No, and it's not because he's not doing a bad job, but it's because he's overwhelmed. And it's really hard to figure out what the right price is. So I think there's solutions. I think if we put people in the same room and we say, here are the problems, and we actually point it out to people. You may not, this may not affect you. Like I tell people all the time, one of the reasons the education vote failed is because as a community, we're segregated. We have poor people who live on one side of town and not poor people live on the other. And the not poor people at times don't get affected nearly as bad when somebody gets shot in the streets. And when I have to explain to people that people are getting shot in the streets on the north side of Lafayette, they just sit there and go, oh, well, somebody broke into my car the other day and, oh, I broke a window. Oh, no, I left it unlocked. Like I see that all the time. That people feel safe enough on the south side of Lafayette, they leave their cars unlocked, right? But when you go to other sides of Lafayette, the reality is it's not like that. And we think we live in a safe community. We think we live in and I'm not saying that Lafayette's dangerous. I'm saying that there are real problems out there that we can solve. We can solve it. Look at Bridge Ministries. Bridge Ministries solved a problem for that community. We need 30 more of those, right? And do we go to Matt Steller and do we go to all the people in town who've done really well and say, hey, I know you built one school here or one after-school program here. I need you to do 30 more. I don't know that it's right for us to put that on them. If they can, it would be great if they do. It's our job. It's our job as a community to say, what do we want Lafayette to be? Do we want Lafayette to have a graduation rate of 75%? Do we want to leave 1 in 4 behind? Is that what the community that we want? I don't think the answer to that's yes. I think the answer to that is we want a talented workforce. That any business can come here and do well. When we brought in fiber and we attracted all these tech companies, it was absolutely great for our community. But we have to import all the employees. We have to import all the workers. It's very rare that we can find somebody locally that knows how to program. And we have a school in Karen Crow that's teaching people how to program, right? But what happens? They get done with that. They go to UL. Where's the entry-level position? We don't have
Houston.
We don't have it, right? We have a term for it. They're called boomerangs. They got to leave the state to get their entry level.
Yeah, and it's been going on for years.
And we got to catch them before they have kids and hope that we can get them back, right? And what do we attract them with? Our indigenous culture. And what's in peril if we let our education rate drop and the crime rate go up? Our community, our indigenous culture.
So, all right, when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit more about what we do with education, with our crime rate, and to not alienate people from the city and the community and our area as a whole with Stafford Barnett. He's been joining us to talk about who he really is, what he really thinks. And boy, have we found out a bunch. This has been great. All right, we've got more to come. Stafford Barnett is one of the 3 panelists who joins us Wednesday mornings on Winging It Wednesday from 7 to 8. We thought it'd be very interesting, and it has proved to be so, to sit down with Stafford and find out a little bit more about what really makes him tick. Now, we were talking about education. We were talking about our boomerang situation with our kids. We're talking about crime in our city and what's really happening. Do you think, for example, there should be more police and fire protection? And if so, how do we pay for that? What would your thoughts be in that area?
So my answer to fire protection, with the limited amount of knowledge I have on it's no. I feel that the city has one of the best fire ratings around, if I'm not mistaken. With police,
how do we stop these crimes? These people who are shooting each other.
It's the ugly answer is education. I mean,
Yeah.
that's the reality. Okay. Look, what's the most basic instinct for a human?
Well, they need to find shelter and they need to find food and water.
To survive,
Sure.
right? The most
Yeah.
basic instinct. And we've created a culture where the way to survive is to go out. It's capitalism. And I love capitalism. I think it's great, right? So the way to survive is to go out and get a job, to bring in money, to buy or to cover your head and to feed your mouth and to take care of your kids, right? In order to do that, you have to be able to read and write. Period. There's not many jobs around that we give to American citizens that don't require you to read and write. So when we fail these kids, they find a way to survive, right? And it's usually at the expense of other people. And I tell people all the time, if you think welfare is a problem, take it away, right? If you think welfare is a problem, let's make the people who are on it really desperate and see what happens to your community. And the answer is it's bad. It's not good. So the goal is to get people who are on welfare off and employed, and then get people who are committing crime, to lower the recidivism rate, right? We get them in jail, and they sit there.
Sure.
And when they should be educated, taught a trade, taught a skill. Maybe we shouldn't overcrowd them at Lafayette Parish Correctional Center.
Yeah, but you can't do that, right, without money.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So, but some people have said that, okay, we're collecting too much money. So how do we do it? How do we find that answer?
So first off, I challenge anybody in Lafayette Parish who says we're collecting too much money to take the budget's 400 pages. Okay, I know that sounds long, but there's a lot of
Absolutely.
stuff in it.
People need
That's
to look
fluff,
at it.
Right.
That's right.
Show me what to cut. Right. Well, show your council member.
Right.
Or you can email me. Right. Actually, email the station. I don't want you to email me. They'll forward it to me. Okay.
Stafford.
So I encourage you to find the fluff. Right. And then I encourage you to actually ask somebody about it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And that's what it takes.
Because
don't just be, as Rob has coined the term, Facebook concerned. You are hoping by talking that you're going to get even more people to listen to this.
Right.
And they will be willing to look at the 400 pages.
Right.
I mean, you're screaming what I've been screaming for years too. You know, if you don't get active in it and look at it, you're not going to understand where the issues are.
Or and if you take things out of context, you're going to get really angry. Right. Because there's some big numbers in there. When you think about the amount of money that we spend on certain things, it seems like a lot of money. But think about a road. There's a lot of concrete there, and there's a lot of dirt work. And if you don't do it right, you got to do it again early. And so I encourage anybody who has a problem with what we're doing right now and the way that we're funding government to go out and tell me how it's wrong. I think that one way that we're doing it is wrong. I think that we have too high a sales tax. I think we have too low a property tax.
Well, I will tell you this on one side of it. I just want to bring this into the conversation. I had a conversation with an attorney in reference to a school board issue who summarizes basically by saying that when Title I, Act 1 happened and the power was given to the superintendent, it really upset the people who were the school board members at the time. And so that they retaliated against him. Well, the courts ended up agreeing, saying that he should not have been fired. Now we're going to fork over the money.
Yeah.
So that's why part of the reason you think people need to be involved in politics.
Right.
Because right there, some people had said that Dr. Cooper was in there and he was cutting fluff.
Oh, yeah.
And it upset and ruffled feathers.
Listen, I'm a fan of Dr. Cooper, right? And so there's two dirty truths, right?
Tell me.
So you get the government you deserve, and elections have consequences.
That's right.
Right?
Okay.
There was an opportunity to elect people that would have kept Dr. Cooper there. And listen, Dr. Aguilar's doing a phenomenal job. I don't want to take anything away from what he's doing.
Right.
But there was an opportunity to put people there. And we had people come out and say the Chamber of Commerce is evil. We had people come out and say all kinds of things about the candidates who were running. And he was voted off 5-4, right? And so from an organic perspective, every elected position is a steward of your money, right?
Sure.
So we put people there who were stewards of our money, who threw it away when they fired somebody with a contract. And people want to get mad and go, how dare we pay him? You put people there, whether you did it by not voting or not getting your friends to vote that fired him. They are a product of us. We created this situation. And look, I'm surprised they're paying him as much as they are, but at the same time, the guy won in court, right?
You have to, I mean, you either continue fighting it or you pay it, and they've voted to decide to pay it.
Right. And look, the school system has done some amazing things since they were told no. And for people who don't know, the law requires that they keep 60 days operating capital on the books at all time. They are operating at 90. They knocked that 30 days off, and they were able to issue that in the form of bonds, right? And that's how they've paid for some of the things that they did. There are people who got furious about the bus system, right? They spent a couple $100,000 trying to figure out how to lower the bus systems, right? But they saved millions, right? And for every penny they save that they can get rid of one Butler building or renovate a classroom or something to make those places a better learning atmosphere for everybody, right? And then we hear from all people all the time, right? Well, it cost X amount of dollars for this kid to go to school. I could send mine to Westminster or blah, blah, blah. You couldn't send them to, well, let me back up. The curriculums that you're seeing at the average private school in Lafayette is the exact same curriculum that you're seeing at the public schools, with the exception that some of the religious schools throw in a religion class, right? Okay. The only ones that really set themselves apart are ESA, the Sacred Heart campuses, and I think LCA maybe, or Ascension, okay? If you go to Westminster, any of the Catholic schools, that kind of stuff, it's the same curriculum you're getting at Woodvale, Alamo, any of that stuff.
So why is it different?
You're paying for who your kids are exposed to. That's what you're paying, right? Maybe there's less divorces in the houses. Maybe there's less domestic violence. Maybe there's less drug use. That's what you're paying for, okay? We have a strong private school system because we have a weak public school system. And if you spend the money to send your kids to go to private schools, you're still paying for the public education system. And if you don't have kids, you're still paying for the public education system. And they go, well, that's not fair. I shouldn't have to pay for that. Okay. My dad doesn't drive nearly as much as you, and he doesn't get on the I-10 very often. Why do I have to pay for the highways?
Sure, right.
I don't think we should be fighting a war in Syria. Why should I pay for the missiles that are about to bombard them, right? So there are a lot of things that we think we shouldn't pay for. The reality is the highway system, the jail system, the public education system are socialist programs. And they're socialist programs that affect society positively. I'm not arguing for socialism. What I'm saying is that let's call them what they are, and let's realize that they have an inherent value. And the better we educate our kids, the better our society will be, the better workers we'll have, the less crime we'll have, and that should be our focus. And we should, in providing equal access to opportunity for others, right, or things, right? Why was the highway system so important? Because we could move stuff across the United States, and we could have remote manufacturing, right? Why we could be capitalizing on India significantly more for manufacturing in parts of Asia if they could get the roads out, right? They don't have highways. Russia's got tons of natural gas. They can't get it anywhere because they don't have pipelines, right? We have a national highway system that we paid for that allows us to move things back and forth. Lafayette has a fiber program. Imagine what would happen to us for leading the tech, which we already do as a country, but for continuing to lead tech, if we started offering that kind of accessibility nationwide or parish-wide or statewide, right? And instead what we have currently, which I'm going to call out Carol on this, is we have some very false attacks about LUS Fiber's financial stability. We had Terry here yesterday saying, hey, we did $44 million in revenue, $8 million cash profit, right? We took that $8 million and we turned around and we invested into expansion. We went into neighborhoods that AT&T wasn't in yet. And sure enough, they go to that community and they say, hey, we're going to expand. And the next day, AT&T's out there putting things on people's door. Hey, we're coming. Wait for us, right? And that's increasing their revenue base, right? They've got a 45% capture rate in the places that they're at. And the biggest complaint is that people don't have access to it in apartments.
Right.
Or they want it there, right? LUS Fiber and LUS prop up our local government. LUS Power and Utilities puts a ton of money into the general fund. The reason we have lower property taxes is because we pay 10.5 cents per kilowatt hour to LUS, where you may go get
So what do you propose then?
What do I propose?
Yeah.
I propose that we have honest conversations with each other about how much stuff costs. And when I made the challenge to people about looking in the budget, I made it because once you look at the budget, you realize the fluff that you think is there really isn't there. And when you go, I don't want to pay more in taxes, but I hate these potholes, I just want to shake my head because it costs money to fill those potholes. When you go, I don't want to pay more taxes, but I want less crime. Well, the solution to crime is education. It's not more police. And there are police officers who may disagree with me on that. The long-term fix is education, right? That's how education is the tussin of society. Put tussin on a broken arm. That's the old joke, right? It's the tussin of society. It'll fix our problems. So if we want nice stuff, we got to pay for it, right? Look at the horse farm. The city can't afford to do anything with it.
Private.
So everything's private, right? And we're going to have one of the nicest parks around, and it's because people were kind enough to pay for it and donate money to it. Thank goodness for the Monclaws, right? Who've done stuff there, who've done great things for UL, and thank goodness for the Mosings, right? They've done great things for our community. It's recognizing people in the community who are taking money out of their pocket, who are willing to say, hey, maybe we should pay a little bit more to make this a better place.
Stafford, I want to thank you for this conversation, and I invite people to focus in on the different things that he said. And I'm glad you were so honest about some things because I think that's what it really all is about. When I want to sit down with people, I want to know what really makes them tick.
Well, and I want people to know that listen to the show that I'm willing to have any conversation you want to have, right? Especially if it's a conversation. If we can sit down and talk, we may walk away going, hey, we don't agree. But we'll walk away knowing each other. And I think that one of the things that escalates conversations with people is not knowing them. And I've been guilty of it. You're real quick to throw out barbs online whenever you don't know somebody. I wanted to sit down with anybody and talk. And I hope that this conversation encourages more conversation. I hope that my participation in Winging It Wednesday encourages more conversation. So
I do too. Thank you so much.
Thank you
for your time.
This was fun.
Interesting.
Yeah.
All right. We'll do it again in the future. How about that?
Anytime.
We have a date.